Oki, Dadanistara, Ambawastich, Tanse, and good morning. Good afternoon, that should be everyone. I'm joined today by General Manager of Infrastructure Services, Michael Thompson. I've got some great news about the water restrictions that we've been easing out of since the return to the Bears Paw feeder main to bring that back to service. Since we announced the change to Stage 2 outdoor water restrictions last Thursday morning, our water services team has been monitoring the Bears Paw feeder main and the city's entire water network very carefully. Earlier this week, there was one pump at the Glenmore Water Treatment Plant and one pump at the Bears Paw Water Treatment Plant that were tripped offline due to two separate issues. The water team also discovered that there was further ventilation that was needed at the Glenmore plant. Those issues have all been addressed. Today, I'm pleased to let you know that we can now move towards Stage 1 outdoor water restrictions effective immediately. The most significant change is how long you can use sprinklers. Now you can use a sprinkler or a sprinkler system for up to 2 hours per week. Odd-numbered homes have the choice of Thursdays or Sundays, and even-numbered homes have the choice between Wednesday and Saturday. And just like in Stage 2, you can use a hose with a trigger nozzle at any time to water your trees, your gardens, your shrubs, and any new grass. Please make sure that you visit calgary.ca for complete information about how we're managing through this water situation, as well as comprehensive information about Stage 1 outdoor water restrictions. Now, I have been in a committee meeting for most of the day, but I have heard reports of a water main break in the Beltline area affecting businesses and hundreds of homes. While we do address 200 to 300 water main breaks every year across the city, to have this water main break happen during this record-breaking heat wave is terrible news for those residents and businesses that are involved. Fortunately, the city has already rolled out water wagons, and I understand that crews are already deployed to the area to work on that water main break. Now, while Calgary is among the fewest breaks per kilometer of water mains compared to other Canadian cities, the water team did expect to see more breaks as the water system was being restabilized. And the timing of this break and other recent breaks are incredibly unfortunate during this heat wave. However, it's also a reminder to us that we need to continue the work of addressing our aging infrastructure. And we will make sure that we bring you more information on how that repair work is going in the Beltline as we know more. Now, as a reminder, this is going to be my last live stream as we are now in Stage 1 restrictions. The Water Services team will stay with you daily until the restrictions are lifted fully. I'd like to thank you all for your patience, for your flexibility, and your understanding as we have continued to navigate this water situation. I understand that routine changes to many of our regular summer gardening practices and outdoor activities has been inconvenient, and I know at times it's also been difficult for many of you. Your efforts and your sacrifices are greatly appreciated, and they have been noticed. Yesterday morning, we also mentioned to you that there were 2 suspected wire snaps that were detected. The water team reviewed this yesterday, and the sensor readings indicate that these were not wire snaps. I'm also happy to advise that Bowness Road fully opened at noon today, and that was following a water main break that happened there and was repaired over the weekend. With another couple of very hot days expected in what could be a record-breaking heat wave, we expect to see Calgarians continuing to use water to cool down. Yesterday, we used 639 million liters of water, which is down slightly from the day before. Those amounts are in line with what we had expected, and just a reminder to everyone, a typical hot July day would see about 680 million liters used. Now, since we detected the 2 pump issues early yesterday morning, the maintenance on those pumps was completed, and this allowed us to refill the various underground reservoirs that we have in many locations throughout the city. Crews are now planning on turning on a 3rd pump at the Bears Paw Water Treatment Plant in order to keep up with the demand that we are forecasting. GM Thompson will have more about that, as well as how the team is going to continue to monitor the city's entire water system as we carefully ease out of outdoor water restrictions. He also has more to say about the rehabilitation plans for the feeder main. Those rehabilitation plans and the independent third-party review of this water incident are two ways that we are making sure that Calgary's water infrastructure will be safe and reliable for years to come. I'm now going to turn things over to General Manager Thompson, who will give you more detail on Stage 1, as well as the ongoing monitoring of our water network.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Mayor. I'm here to bring you an update on our progress since yesterday morning. As we shared with you yesterday, there were some operational issues at both the Glenmore and Bearspaw water treatment plants overnight on Sunday. We received word early on Monday morning, and we had to make some quick decisions about whether or not to go ahead with our plans to move to Stage 1 outdoor water restrictions. At that time, we were still gathering information on the cause of the issues, what maintenance would be needed, and what the impact would be to our water supply and the ability to meet demand. I'm pleased to share that things have gone well. Yesterday morning, we were able to clarify that the issues on Monday morning were to do with pumps that move water from the river to the plants and Bearspaw South Feeder Main, and an air handling issue at the Glenmore water treatment plant. I acknowledge that this is slightly different than what I understood to be the case yesterday morning. While each of these issues was relatively minor, we needed time to determine root causes and the impact on our water supply. With demand anticipated to be high this week with the heat, we needed to be cautious about managing supply and demand. One of the issues was related to the external power supply, not the plant itself. We completed maintenance on the pumps yesterday, and they are both back in operation. Contractors are continuing to work on the air system at the Glenmore water treatment plant, and the system is stable while that work is being completed. In light of these developments, and after looking at our modeling, we now have the confidence we need to announce that as of today, we are lowering our outdoor water restrictions to Stage 1. We know many of you are anxious about your lawns, particularly given the continued heat. The most significant change between Stage 2 and Stage 1 is that now all Calgarians, residents and businesses can use a sprinkler, soaker hose, or in-ground sprinkling system for up to 2 hours a week on specific days. The sprinkler schedule is the same as it was in Stage 2. Even-numbered addresses can use their sprinkler on Wednesday or Saturday. Odd-numbered addresses can use their sprinkler on Thursday or Sunday. We ask that you water in the morning or in the evening, avoiding the warmest hours in the afternoon. This will help to avoid evaporation and allow more water to reach the roots of your lawn. You may also choose to split your 2 hours per week between the 2 days. The important action is that you do not water your lawn more than 2 hours per week. In addition to the sprinkler schedule, you can continue to water gardens, plants, and shrubs with a hose fitted with a trigger spray nozzle or drip irrigation with an automatic shutoff any day at any time. We are still being mindful that we have enough supply to meet the increased demand, especially during this hot weather. You've shown incredible support by working with us to gradually increase your water use over the past few weeks. By continuing to follow this sprinkler schedule, you help us to manage demand in a gradual, measured way with balanced use across the city. As you will recall, we were in Stage 1 water restrictions last year, from the middle of August until the end of October. We've been here before, and Calgarians know what to do. Tomorrow, we plan to turn on an additional pump at the Bearspaw water treatment plant. As in the past, we will monitor the system for a few days, constantly watching pressure, listening for wire snaps, and tracking water demand. This monitoring will help inform our decision about whether to lift restrictions further. In addition to the move to Stage 1 outdoor water restrictions, I'm happy to share 2 other positive developments. First, Bonus Road has now fully reopened following the water main break that occurred on Friday night. Second, yesterday morning, we reported that 2 additional wire snaps had been detected overnight. After further analysis, our consultant was able to determine that the sounds were not actually wire snaps, but unrelated noise picked up by the acoustic monitors. This means that our total remains at 5 snaps detected since we restored the pipe back to service. As I've shared with you before, we have learned a lot about the feeder main. We are actively working on a medium to long-term rehabilitation plan to address some of the areas we know that have ongoing issues. We expect to receive additional information by the end of the month, including the results of the pipe diver inspection, and will incorporate this into our rehabilitation plan. Some of the plans that we are looking at include placing a liner inside the existing pipe, replacing additional segments of pipe that have a lower structural capacity due to wire snaps, exterior reinforcing of the pipe, and installing a new pipe. Developing this plan will take some time, but we're committed to providing updates as we progress. The independent third-party review will be reviewing this incident along with the response and how findings can be applied to other city infrastructure. While we understand the need for the review to follow its course, we have already started working internally to understand what happened, what we need to do differently, and how we can apply these learnings as we go forward. I wanted to thank you for your time today and for your continued support. For more details on what is allowed under Stage 1 water restrictions, frequently asked questions, and other information about this incident, please go to calgary.ca/restrictions. Also, while Mayor Gondek has finished providing daily updates, as she said, we will continue with ours for now, and we'll be back with our live stream tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll now turn the podium back to the Mayor.
Thanks very much, Michael. And as GM Thompson just outlined, the monitoring of the feeder main and the entire water network remains quite important in the coming days as we turn on that additional pump at the Bearspaw treatment facility. If all goes well, we may have news of all restrictions being lifted in the days to come. And if there are any concerns that are identified, the Water Services team will make sure that you are kept up to speed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are now in Stage 1 water restrictions, and this will be my final live stream with you. Going forward, the Water Services team will continue to provide daily updates, as GM Thompson has said, at 2 p.m. daily, explaining feeder main and network conditions, the status of outdoor water restrictions, details from those pipe diver results, and updates on the medium to long-term plans for pipe rehabilitation. And although I won't be involved in live stream updates, I want to make it clear that I am committed to making sure that the independent review process is clearly defined and that CAO Duckworth and his team are able to step away, allowing that process to become independent as quickly as possible. This independent review is of utmost importance. We need to understand what happened, why it happened, and how we can make sure it does not happen again. That's our responsibility as a council and as your local government, to be accountable and to have answers to those questions. Further, the independent review is comprehensive and it will take time to complete. It will take time to find and appoint a qualified and capable chair, as well as the remainder of the review panel. They will then need to establish their terms of reference and the scope of their work, and then they'll need to conduct that work. We will seek regular updates throughout that process to make sure that you are kept informed. At the same time, as General Manager Thompson mentioned, as your local government, we still hold the responsibility to conduct our own incident review of this catastrophic feeder main break, just as we would do for any other critical situation. We take this responsibility seriously, and we hold ourselves accountable to provide you with transparency on what we have determined happened and how we can ensure that it does not happen again. Sharing our learning from this crisis is also critical to ensure that other municipalities across North America have a solid understanding of what happened here in Calgary, as many of them are in the same position as us when it comes to infrastructure. From my work with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Big City Mayors Caucus, I know that many cities are eagerly anticipating our independent review, as it may inform the decisions and actions that they take as well. I look forward to the full transparency that those reviews will provide. I've appreciated joining you in the mornings to provide you with critical information on water usage as well as repair processes. Your next update will be tomorrow from the Water Services team at 2 p.m. through the live stream, which you can watch as always on calgary.ca/live. Thank you again for being collaborative and compassionate community members. Be well, carry on being good water stewards, and please continue to take care of each other. And I'll turn things over to Adam to field questions from the media.
Scott, CBC. for GM Thompson. So turning on the additional pipe pump that you spoke about, does that take the feeder main up to 75%, and would that aid in reducing the outdoor restrictions altogether?
So the question was turning on the third pump at the Bears Paw Water Treatment Plant, and will that increase the flow and help us to easing water restrictions off completely? And so the answer is yes, as we've shown in the past in the graph that we've shown. As we get to 75% flow in the Bears Paw South feeder main, we believe that we would be able to move out of outdoor watering restrictions completely. That is depending on weather, obviously. And so on really hot days, there's always a spike in usage. And with that pipe flowing at 75%, we're still not back to 100% capacity. And so we're going to have to watch how the demand goes with these warm days ahead. But our goal is to work out of restrictions, and moving to that 75% flow will allow us to do that.
And just as that pump comes back on stream, you monitor, I presume, for 48, 72 hours, and then there might be a change, or would you wait longer?
So the question was, as we return the pump back into service, what we'll be doing from a monitoring perspective. And so we'll continue as we turn that third pump on at the Bears Paw Water Treatment Plant, watching the pressures across the system in the pipe at the plant and downstream. We'll continue listening for any wire snaps that we may hear as that comes back in line, and we'll look at the supply and the demand across the entire system. And typically we've watched that for a few days. As you saw yesterday, when we see issues that are unexpected, we're going slowly and cautiously before we lift restrictions. And so if we see issues, we will go slowly as we move forward. The first and foremost piece we have at all times is the safety of our drinking water system, and ensuring that we're not going backwards, but that we're going forwards.
Eric, for Jody, please. Mayor, maybe this is an obvious question, but is this an indication that the crisis is coming to an end?
I think it's important to recognize that we went through something that was massive. It was a catastrophic water feeder main break, and to think that we are completely out of the woods right now is a little premature. We need to make sure that we turn on that third pump very carefully and cautiously and monitor the progress. So I would say to Calgarians and surrounding area, please make sure that you are in line with stage 1 water restrictions, and when we can tell you that all restrictions are lifted and we are back to regular water service, we will certainly let you know, but we're not quite there yet.
Which was the other mayors are contacting your office? Could we get an idea of maybe some of the cities that are looking at this? And I know across North America we have aging infrastructure pretty much in every city here. How big of an issue is this from those folks to your office?
I have to say that when it comes to other mayors and our understanding of our aging infrastructure and what we need to do, it was very interesting that our feeder main broke the night before the Big City Mayors Caucus was talking about infrastructure and aging infrastructure and the need for support from the federal government. There was a report that was already put together, and we had a press conference talking about the need for greater federal funding for infrastructure such as water infrastructure. So to have our feeder main break at that exact time was really quite poignant, and it provided a clear example of why municipalities can't do this on their own. So, you know, in addition to the mayors of London and Winnipeg, who are the chairs and co-chairs of Big City Mayors Caucus, everyone across this nation is looking to see what happened here and what we need to do moving forward as municipalities to ensure we have greater access to funds. I mean, frankly, Calgary is the economic engine of the country, and we deserve to see taxpayer dollars come back here to help us with situations like this. So we continue to work with the federal government to get back the funding we need for important infrastructure work.
I'm curious, well, just take a big step back to the beginning of this. Mr. Thompson alluded to the fact that last year in August we moved to stage 1 because of heat and dry conditions. You mentioned that we're in an unprecedented heat wave and it may set records. Then both of you talked about the potential move to eliminate all of the restrictions. Do you worry that you might put Calgarians in a yo-yo position where you lift the restrictions and then a week or a week and a half later you have to bring them back because of weather conditions and people might just ignore it?
I think right now everyone is very aware that we are in outdoor water restrictions because of the water feeder main break. And we have tried to be as clear about that as possible over the last 6+ weeks. The reason for outdoor water restrictions was to make sure that we could have water flowing to all homes and businesses in Calgary and the surrounding region as we were without a feeder main. Now that that feeder main is back online and we are slowly increasing speed of flow, we are easing up on restrictions that were tied to that break. So if we determine in the future that there is a drought condition that requires some more restrictions, we'll address that if and when the time comes. For now, the restrictions that we are in are directly related to the feeder main break that we went through.
Follow that up. If we move to have no restrictions, as you both alluded to as a possibility, to eliminate all restrictions as a result of the feeder main, what would Calgarians be looking for, perhaps, to prep themselves and prepare themselves mentally for a return to at least stage 1 restrictions as the heat may continue through the summer? What should happen?
I think the biggest thing that Calgarians can do is continue to watch the regular live streams that will come from the Water Services team to let everyone know how we are doing in terms of progress to restore regular water service in our city. I can also tell you that the province is an active partner with us in looking at drought conditions and determining whether we should be doing something to make sure that we're preserving our water sources and water supplies. So if any type of drought conditions make themselves evident, I know that the provincial government will be working with us to get that type of messaging out to people in the entire province.
Scott, close media.
My question is for Jeanette Thompson. You've mentioned that there have been 5 wire snaps so far since the feeder main was brought back online. I'm curious if the city has a number that it would find concerning. Would it be like 10 wire snaps, 100 wire snaps?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So again, the wire snap, the wire is like a slinky that wraps around each 16-foot segment of pipe, about 350 times per each segment of pipe. And so over the length of this feeder main, the wires wrap. There's hundreds of thousands, if not into the millions of wires along the length of the pipe. And so it's not one individual snap that we're worried about. It's really as we start to see more. So as we start to get into the 20, 30, 40, 50 range, as we start to become more concerned about it, those are areas as we'll start to lose structural integrity in the pipe, and when we have to start looking at different repair mechanisms that would be required.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but the sounds that you said were unrelated, that the acoustic monitoring picked up, does the city have any idea what those sounds were, or could that have been something that's above ground?
Yeah, I don't have the details around what those sounds would be. So the acoustic monitor are basically microphones that are attached to the pipes, to air valves, or different locations. And so it's a microphone listening for a wire snap. And it may have picked up a different sound. Again, when we talked to you yesterday, we were told that it had picked up 2 wire snaps. As the team went back and did some additional quality assurance on that work, they realized that it wasn't. And so that's our consultants working with us, coming back and letting us know, no, they weren't 2 wire snaps. And so that's why we wanted to clarify that for you today.
Sebastian, any questions?
I guess if we've learned anything from this, what did we learn? Did we do something? Did we go into the massive restrictions too quickly? Should we have waited? The Calgarians seem to be really frustrated. So what did we do right and what did we do wrong in this whole situation?
I think as this situation unfolded, we learned many things. I mean, first off, we learned that we needed to increase our communication with Calgarians. We needed to be much more clear about the situation that was unfolding, how dire it was, and what we needed in terms of assistance from people in Calgary and the surrounding region. And as we stepped up our communication, Calgarians became more aware of the severity of the situation and the role that they could play. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I am so appreciative and so full of gratitude to the people of Calgary and the surrounding region who thought to themselves, you know what, I have a big role to play here. I can help save water indoors. I can practice things like taking a shorter shower, by only doing laundry when I have a full load, and by making sure that I flush the toilet a little bit less often. And it's because of those measures that water demand went down dramatically. And so with that water demand going down, even 25% from normal, we were able to keep water flowing to homes and and businesses, and that was critical to everyone in Calgary and the region. So I think as our communication improved, Calgarians were better able to understand the situation that they're in. And we have been incredibly full of resolve when we say we are not out of the woods yet. We are exercising extreme caution to make sure that we can lift restrictions as the time is appropriate. Yesterday was a great example. We had hoped to be with you to say we were into stage 1. We just couldn't do that yet because of what we observed with pumps. And today we are able to tell you that we're in stage 1. So I would say that all of us are a little tired because we have been through this for quite some time. But Calgarians and people in the surrounding region have been patient, and they've been understanding, and they know how precious their water supply is. And I think we've done a good job as a community managing how we use water.
Scott, CBC.
Just a question of clarification for Michael. The ventilation issue regarding the intake pumps, does that mean that the space or the room that the pumps were in basically got too hot and they tripped off?
So I don't have the details around where the ventilation was specifically in the plant. It just, with all of the hot weather that we had throughout the last number of days, we needed to increase ventilation in an area, and so the team was working on that, and they're continuing to work on that. Again, it's just like everyone else. With all this hot weather, we have a lot of mechanical equipment. It's running fairly warm and a lot of process equipment, and we need to make sure that we keep it cool throughout this warm weather.
The problem wasn't with the pumps, it was the ventilation around the pumps.
And there's also an electrical, so one of the questions, what was the problem with so it wasn't just the pumps, it wasn't just the ventilation, also electrical supply coming into one of the pumps. And so a number of issues had come together Sunday night, Monday morning, and as the mayor said, that's why we did not move out of stage 2 to stage 1 on Monday, because we wanted to make sure that the system was stable before we did that.
I guess, what's total capacity now that the pumps are coming online? What is the total capacity of the system?
Thanks for the question. So with respect to the total capacity of the system right now, I don't have that exact number, but we can get it out. It will depend. We've got some peaking that we can use at the Glenmore plant as we move forward, as we bring this third pump back online. So it varies a bit as we're bringing everything back into service right now.
I guess city staff must be working pretty heroically here to get the crisis completed here. What happens next for them? I mean, I imagine they're working overnight, they're working overtime here. What happens to those staff now that things sort of wind down from the peak of the crisis?
Yeah, thanks. So the question about what happens with our staff as we wind down, I really do appreciate all of the work that the city staff, the contractors, the consultants have been putting in. This has been a massive community response to this situation, and so just have to thank everyone again for all of their work. I know that the city staff are pretty tired on the folks that have been working directly on this, and so hopefully we'll get those folks some rest, and we're setting up new staff in a recovery operation, and so we don't just stop working on this. We know that, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of work we have to do investigating what happened, understanding how we're going to apply those lessons learned, and how we're going to close this incident out, and we still have the medium to long-term rehabilitation plan to work on. So basically shifting staff around, bringing some new people on to work in that next stage as we work in that recovery operation phase going forward.
Any other questions?
Yeah. You mentioned that the pumps failed because of heat ventilation, and you mentioned this hot stretch. Hot stretches are becoming more and more prevalent as climate change takes a bigger and bigger effect. Does this indicate that things like pump stations and perhaps other civic infrastructure needs to buttress itself against these sort of changes in our climate? And if so, what's being done?
Thanks for the question. Really talking the question around resilience of our infrastructure and what are we doing as we go forward in designing our infrastructure to ensure that we're designing infrastructure that's resilient. And that's exactly what we are doing. Looking at different design standards to make sure that we've got wider temperature ranges, because we know that our winters get colder and our summers get hotter for longer, and so we have to design our infrastructure for that. We also know that we have to design for both drought and for flood with our infrastructure, and so we are in a really interesting place in the world where we have to be designing for both extremes with our infrastructure. And so we continually do that as we're designing our infrastructure going forward. We're looking to make sure we're designing a resilient community, and we're committed to doing that. And we have to look at the existing infrastructure we have across our community and look at what we have to upgrade as we go forward to make sure that it's resilient as well.
All right, thanks so much, folks. Water team has another update tomorrow afternoon at 2.